I like that. Bleeding shad.
Good afternoon, folks. We've got Dustin joining in. He's already playing with baits already. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Hey, we got him.
We're playing with, I got baits all over my table. He's got baits all over
We
his
got 'em.
table.
We've been talking about baits. We already
Been
been
talking
giddy.
about baits.
Yep, been giddy. A little excited to talk to y'all tonight. Another Tuesday.
Folks, get on here. We'll let everybody come on and go ahead and hit the 10K Crappie Connection, get the party started here on Tuesday night. By far, probably the best weather day in October that I've had so far here.
Actually, that is
Beautiful
funny
day.
you say that. Same here for sure. I bet it's best. It started off super cold, and then it got about 70, 75 degrees with a light wind. I don't think it gets
Mhm.
much better than that.
We got Travis, Billy,
Oh, Travis Gooden,
Josh,
what's going on,
Steven
buddy?
Sullivan, Bad Bird on the YouTube. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, where's the fishing reports at, Travis? I know y'all been ripping them, so let's hear where they're at and what they're doing.
Yeah, Mr. Jim, Holden, Kobe, Chad Wright. All right, I like everybody coming on in here. Holden
Already,
Higgs, Kevin.
they're already on the 10K crappie connection.
That's right. Jordan, Billy, Chad, JT. Y'all come on, chime on in, and we get the party started. Been a great week of fishing. All last week was. This week's been great. Yesterday was really windy and cold. Actually, probably really reminded me of wintertime fishing yesterday.
I think I'm softening up because I canceled my trip with that windy cold action.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I had a trip yesterday, and I haven't posted a lot of pictures about it yet, but I'll talk about it a little bit. Yesterday, it was myself and one other boat at the boat ramp yesterday. It probably shows how crazy we were to get on out there, but had a 9-year-old little boy. He was in the fifth grade and caught, I know, his personal best crappie yesterday, and a very special one too. I don't know if you guys seen this post on tonight's the day's bite post on Facebook or not, but little Sam caught, I want to say it was about a 230 magnolia crappie. I've got it on video. Cannot wait to actually post the video. His dad was taking it as we caught it up front. How excited this little boy was to catch his fish. Definitely what makes me get up every morning, and no matter what the weather conditions, especially when you got a child going and give everything you got. This little boy, like I said, his name's Sam. He's from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Come down and fish with me, and I'm telling you, guys, you got to see the video when I post it. I'll probably post it on Crappie Connection here because it's just so special to see this little boy catch his fish. It was absolutely just what I love. Taking kids fishing, getting them introduced to the great sport of crappie fishing, how fun it really is. And I think back of whenever I started crappie fishing, and a lot of times back then we just tied up to brush tops and stumps and stayed there all day and watched floats, and that I really remember and cherish it a lot too. But I cannot imagine how much fun it would be going out there for the first time and watching live scope and watching fish come up and get your baits and attacking them and everything else. So definitely, before I forget the subject line I'm a little up on is, take these kids fish and show them how great we've got it out there in the outdoors and on crappie fishing. So definitely look out for this video. Little Sam catching this monster of magnolia crappie. Actually, I would have probably considered mounting this fish if I'd have. It was just, how many times do you catch over a 2 pound magnolia crappie?
Yeah, I can't say
Nothing.
I can't say I have caught one over two
Yeah.
pounds. So, and that'll tell you something because I've caught a lot of fish. So, and I've never seen one over 2 pounds. But
Yep.
speaking of a magnolia crappie, I know a guy that caught one over 3 pounds, and he just commented on here.
Yep.
Chad Rogers is back. I've been praying for you,
Right,
brother,
yep.
and
Yep.
it ain't been the same without you. So I'm glad you're back, man.
Yep. Absolutely, Chad.
Nice
Good to
to
have you
hear.
back too, buddy.
Nice to hear from you. And yeah, he's caught a three something magnolia.
Something.
Isn't that unbelievable? So it's funny that gets brought up. But yeah, I haven't seen one over 2, and I can't say I wouldn't have mounted it as well. I always tell myself if I caught one over 2, I would mount it just because they're so pretty.
Yeah. definitely a special fish. And like I said, especially once you see this video, how excited this little boy gets whenever he
For
catches
sure.
it.
I
It was
bet.
awesome.
And I bet it fought like a shark to him.
Oh man, you
Yeah.
can see me about trying to jump out of the boat to net this fish whenever he actually hit.
I
So
bet.
I didn't
He
know
was
it was that
probably
big of a fish.
he was probably a pretty tough little kid too, with that weather being cold and windy.
Very tough. I mean, yesterday, and I guess I kind of lead into today's bite and pick up from last week and move on to today where we're at. Last week I was able to actually catch them roaming and casting to them. They wanted a bait really moving past them a good bit, and they'd come up and sneak behind them and chomp them down. Casting 2/16 was my regimen of choice last week. Big cold front come through this weekend, as everybody knows. Water temperature dropped Monday morning when I got out there. I seen it around 63 degrees. Pretty chilly considering what we've been and how fast it's actually dropped down. These fish kind of hugged back to cover, hugged on ledges, and they would suspend off the ledge, but it wasn't too far from it either. I mean, I couldn't catch them out in the middle of the river channel like I was beforehand. They wanted to be near some kind of ledge, not too far from it, either 15, 20 feet, and then up on the ledge was really been my selection of choice to go catch fish the last couple of days. And really, we've had to slow down the presentation. I hadn't been able to cast to them, or I didn't feel like it would be as productive the last 2 days. So we was dead sticking them, live scoping them, coming back behind them, keeping the bait above them,
Are those
tapping.
single fish or schools?
I hadn't seen the wolf packs that I've seen the last couple of days. I've all been really small crappie. I hadn't seen any of the big crappie wolf packs lately.
Gotcha.
The ones I've seen have been really, 3/4 to a pound fish. Nothing major. Most of the big fish are, like I said, by themselves or on some kind of structure. I know we got a big tournament here on the res this weekend, so I won't spill every bean out there for let some of those guys that have a good pattern go and keep it up under their hat. But I do see a pattern on the reservoir right now that, my prediction, I think it's a 5-fish tournament. They'll probably need to have at least 11.5 pounds every day to stay in that top tier section, what I've seen. Maybe 12. Not saying it's not possible to catch bigger fishing out there, because there are some for sure. But I think if you get 11.5 pounds a day, you'd be right there with them. But going out there just chasing open water suspended fish, they're out there. Today was light winds. I could fish anywhere on the lake. And actually, I started by the 43 bridge just because I knew there was a lot of fish there. There really wasn't a whole lot of big fish there, but there's a lot of fish in that area. So we started there and then moved out to the main lake and really put the wallop on.
Put the thumping
some
on
good
them.
fish today.
Yeah.
But I'll let you spill your today's biting that side of the area, and we'll get some.
I actually just made it back to Grand for the first time. I haven't been to Grand in a while. I've been bouncing around the lakes kind of close to me in Kansas, and they've been lights out. That was kind of my last report last week. Same thing there is. I went out with Bobby Garland and we tried several different colors, several different bait styles, and just trying some new things, and destroyed them. Did really well. We talked about that, but I went to Grand today, and it's total opposite, of course, than a shallow, muddy water lake. Grand's got that clear water in it, and the fish just seem to go deeper this time of year, and they start to spread out. They start to scatter. They're not on my brush near like they usually are, so they've pulled off of it. We still caught limits today in brush because I was so hard-headed. I didn't want to go look for these roaming fish because I kind of knew we could still pull it off on the brush. But if a fellow's trying to catch numbers of big fish, you're going to have to go find suspended fish somewhere, following these bait fish around and riding the bottom. They love being on the bottom right now, even 30 foot down there today off the bottom. So where your brush usually is, you can see them kind of just laying on the bottom under the brush, 30 foot deep. I couldn't even get, I don't have brush piles deep enough for what they want to go right now. So it's almost like they're crawling on the bottom, and we were chasing them. Super finicky bite. If you had them chasing it, you were never guaranteed a bite. So it was a frustrating day, but we got limits. I helped another guide out, and everybody got limits out there at Grand today. So it's still successful, but it can be a struggle when this cold front hits like this and the water starts cooling off a lot. It's like a dramatic change, and the fish kind of get in a funk. But once it stays cold, because we're getting next week. It's going to bump back up to the high 70s, 80s. But once it stays cold, we'll get into a pattern. They'll start wolf packing real good, and we can follow those wolf packs around that are chasing the bait fish and whack them with bigger baits, casting to them. And then in Kansas, that's what we were doing. So these fish are they're stepped up already to that because you got shallower water, and they're just getting there a lot faster. The water's way cooler, and we're chasing them around roaming like that. So, man, we were whacking them on everything with those roamers, those live roamers, and all the colors. So we'll get into these baits sooner than later, I'm sure. But
yeah, I see a report. I want to get all these fishing reports because you guys,
appreciate
they
y'all.
really help out so many people. And I see one from, was it Mark Twain right here?
I don't know. I've seen a couple on there. I'm kind of behind now because I just see the top ones. So get them.
All right. Is it Jesse Brown from Mark Twain? He's fishing 8 to 12 foot deep on brush piles. Big fish seem to be roaming shallow.
Fair enough. I've seen that. I think Holden Higgs asked me what I was going to fish next year tournament wise. I'm going to definitely bounce around the big trails still and fish the local Oklahoma. I mean, I'll definitely, I always tell myself I'm going to get out and slow down a little bit to try to focus on guiding a little bit more. But I got so busy last year or this year that I missed some opportunities. But I'm going to fish the state trail, and I'll just pick some of the bigger ones that are close. I'm not going to take off across the country probably, but I'll fish some that are close and try to still stay in there and compete with them guys.
Holden, you want to tell his fishing reports?
I lost his fishing reports. I seen him though.
I'll give Holden. He's caught 30-something last weekend. Roman wolf packs, nice fish, £1.20 to £1.80, mainly in 10 to 20 foot deep. Hair jigs took me a little time to find them, but once he found them, didn't take too long.
Man, when you find them, that's kind of like out at Grand. That's why I was scared to go search with these clients. I didn't really want to go scouting while I was fishing. But if you can go out there, it might take you a while to find them. But you know as well as I do, when you find those wolf packs and they're aggressive, you got a limit before you know what happened because they are all eating. They're super aggressive, and you can throw big baits at them.
Also, I see Chad Rogers on here, and I like some of you guys that fished over at Chico over in Arkansas. I know it was a tournament over there this past weekend.
I seen that.
Kind of fill us in what was going on in Chico. I talked to my buddy Michael Sylvester. He fished that lake during that tournament, and Michael said he caught a lot of fish, and he said it was a lot of fish over there. I don't think they caught a whole lot of fish, but I think it was around 12 something. Somebody get in here and comment and make sure I'm actually correct on the poundage, but I figured it was going to take about 12 pounds to win that tournament, and I think it was right around that neighborhood. 12 and a half seems like, but Chico's on the way back, guys, and I think another year that lake there.
Chad actually did well there. I think Chad got a pretty dang good place there, so it's good he showed up and got a hold of that one. We got a crankbait fish report.
Oh, really? I'm trying to catch up.
Yes. Grant Staton said they ain't at Pickwick. Caught 3 today pulling cranks. Threw everything in the kitchen sink at them. Couldn't set a pattern. Found some suspended fish, but they wouldn't chase. Probably caught 20 kitties. So 20 catfish. Man, that's a tough bite for sure. Just like you said, if they wouldn't chase and you found the suspended fish, that's when you got to break that long pull out. Those fish just aren't aggressive enough to chase. So I'd be breaking that long pull out and dipping on them heads. For sure.
There's Chico. There's Chad. He's saying Chico is amazing, fishing 12 to 16 foot deep, coming off the bottom. Lake Lee has 2 pound black crappie on brush piles. I can't read the rest of it.
12 pounds came from Lake Lee and Chico. Thanks, Chad.
Yep.
I appreciate that, bro. 2 pound black crappie. I want me some of that action.
Yep. I was really surprised they were able to get a boat in Lake Lee. That lake's, it's a live fed on the river, which it gets cut off, I think, about 18 feet on the river gauges. So it kind of shuts it off from getting any lower. But that lake can be really challenged to get in. So my hat's off to whoever brave to put a boat into that lake right now.
Chad Wright's got one for the res. He said he fished the res today. The fish on timber were a little slow. The open water fish were hungry. Casting a gray hair jig, Bobby Garland. Not sure what color it's called. Monkey milkish with purple glitter. I would say that might be Yeah, purple monkey is what you're talking about
Purple
there.
monkey. That's
And
exactly
purple
what it
monkey
is.
might just be one of Brad's little killers. He just posted a picture not too long ago with purple monkey on there. So that looks like that might be a res color.
Definitely, purple's always been good here on the res too, and it's that purple monkey's fitting the bill right now as far as on the res. I think the lake's probably as clearest as I can recall in a while. I don't know if we get any clearer than what it is for the Ross Barnett. We haven't had any kind of amounts of rain in about 2 months really now, so the lake has very little current coming through it.
So with that being said, that clear water, where's the winning fish going to be caught? How deep? Because you'd have to think they'd be deeper, no? With that clear water.
No.
Still not that deep.
I don't want to. If somebody's got a good pattern going, I don't want to screw them up.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I got you. Maybe next week.
Maybe next week. And
I was just testing kind of what you got going on the res, because I'd like to hear that and then hear them say the same thing come this weekend.
Yeah, I think it'll be off a ledge of some sort of near a ledge, near the river channel or near lake bed, which that's where majority of people fish on the reservoir already. But I would say from 12 to 18 foot of water.
I'd be figuring if it was that clear, they'd probably be pushing deeper. But that ain't too bad. That's not that deep, really.
No, that's perfect. And I think of like using my live scope and the things I've kind of redefined this year as far as using live scope. And, I like fishing 17 foot of water and under. I fixed my live scope to look
17.
at 17. I don't know how I come up with that, but I'm really comfortable reading the screen at 17 foot deep.
That's so funny.
So it's kind of an odd number. I know.
Do you set your number at 20, your depth range at 20 though?
17.
I'll be dang. See, I set mine at 20, and if the water's a 15 foot, look out.
If it's 17 is where I really like it at. And, we will see some fish deeper than that as it gets colder, but day in and day out, you can catch them 16 foot to about 11 foot day in and day out on the reservoir.
Yeah.
Of course, there's circumstances they'll go deeper and shallower, but I like having my screen set at 17 foot looking down and kind of fixed at that. And the more you read it, the more you can really define, say, all right, that's a good fish. And it's like that, the big fish that we caught yesterday with Sam was, after we caught it, I think I was holding my breath the whole time I seen the fish. I seen whirl around and look at the bait and start following it up. And I don't think I breathed the whole time. And after we got in the boat, they asked me, it's like, did you know that fish was that big? And I was like, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I wasn't breathing the whole time once I saw it on the screen.
That's so funny.
And that's the joy of it, dude. Is just you can kind of figure out what you're looking at and you say, all right, this is a stud right here. I've got to really do what, pay attention to what's going on.
I was really tripping my clients out today doing that. You won't believe this, but they were Amish. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so you could picture what the live scope looked like to them. And we were dropping down, and I'd be like, okay, now this one's a keeper. Get ready. He's coming. Get ready. He's getting ready to bite it. And then he'd bite it, and they're just like, how the heck? They just was freaking out. Yeah. And then one would bite it, and they'd reel it in, and they're excited. And I say, well, don't get excited. That ain't a keeper. And they're just like, how do you know if it's 10 inches or not? I'm just like, man, I've looked at it way too long, and I can tell 9 times out of 10 if it's a keeper. I can even tell when it's close. So I'll say, it might be a keeper, and it'll be right at a keeper size just from seeing so many get drug up out of that brush. So, and then you see that one pull up off the bottom of that tree, start following it, and it makes your heart start skipping a little bit because you know what a big one looks like. So as soon as the big one starts coming, you get excited before the client even knows what's going on. You're like, oh, boy, should I tell them? Because most of the time when I tell them, here comes a giant, they mess it up.
Yeah.
I try not to say nothing.
A lot of times I'll just kind of hold my breath and, try to make sure everything's done right. And it breaks your heart when they turn around and swim away and you're like, man, what did I do wrong? What can we do to fix that?
And then the clients will think, because then you'll be like, oh my gosh, that was a giant. They're like, oh yeah, now that it's swimming away, it was a giant. It's like, no, I just didn't want to say nothing until it bit.
Got Charles Henderson. He's giving us a long line report. I like that, Charles.
There we go.
Only caught some fish long lining in the main lake. Not a lot of suspended fish, but fixing to get right. 17 foot of water. Whitehead, Grenada Gold.
Ooh, I like that color combination. A whitehead's been doing really well for me. Both lakes I've been fishing, so whitehead's doing good when they go to
I
the
like orange heads mainly, but I I'm not going to show my bait of the week yet because I don't want to get too far myself. But I like orange heads a lot.
Yep.
Here's
Chartreuse,
Travis's
like me a
report.
chartreuse.
Eufaula Lake. Let me see if my little curses in a way. Water temperature is 66 to 68. Found fish on brush piles and laydowns in 10 to 14 foot of water. Tough conditions and finicky bite. Found some roamers late evening and they were biting pretty well. Fished for those for about 30 minutes to an hour after dark, which is interesting. Scoping in the dark.
Oh, it is interesting for sure. Uh,
Only thing I've ever been told about that is those fish really get active and they just move like crazy.
oh yeah, they're running like crazy. But it is so amazing to me how they can see a bait in the pitch black. That blows my mind. Takes my theories, a lot of theories I thought I had out the window. But Travis Goodwin, nice fishing report, like always, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all with your fishing report. Hey, Crappie Wayne said Amish at Fort Gibson put their boat in with a tractor and have live scope. Well, they aren't from this community that I was with today, buddy. Let me tell you. I learned a lot today from the old Amish. Of course, you know me. I was asking a million questions because I never really had gotten to visit with the way they are and the way life is for them guys. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen Sullivan, Sardis Water, 68 catching limits of eaters. Not hard in the deep. And I'll reread that, Stephen. I'm sorry, I screwed that all up. Sardis water temperature 68 catching limits of eaters, not hard in deeper, 17 to 22 foot of water. Big fish are in shallow flats near channels. Some are tough to bite. Remind me of tournament fish. All wrong. I am way behind you still, I think, aren't I?
Yeah, you are, but that's okay. Clayton Noblin said, went out to the res this past weekend, picked up a few fish on timber, open water. They were still finicky on the bite. Caught them on blackhead, 32nd, and an 80-bit hummingbird slab hunter. Oh, I like that. That's a killer color too.
Yeah, that definitely a killer right there.
Like bass in the dark. Yeah, JT said lateral lines like bass to see in the dark. So I guess he's saying the crappie have that. Boy, it is unbelievable. I will say use a real dark color when you're fishing at night, but don't think them crappie can't just come a racing and smoke them jigs at night.
Yep. Mitch is asking about the whole hoodies last week. Hopefully Daniel or one of the guys from Crappie Forever can kind of fill us in whenever those hoodies will be available as far as the new colors and styles. Should be real soon because we need them now. And actually, one of the subjects I want to touch on this week is, gear for cold water fishing, cold weather fishing, or what have you. Some of the things that I like to use to kind of make the day a little bit more condoning or able to withstand it, because cold and wind, which is coming like it was yesterday, it takes a lot to stay on the water. If you don't have some of this gear, it'll make your life a lot easier, I think.
For sure. I can agree with that. Travis Goodwin said the hardest thing was trying to line up the deucer to drop on them. I'd imagine he's talking about deeper fish. So, yeah, Travis, that can be definitely challenging fishing for the deeper fish. I'd almost recommend getting you a 0-degree offset. You wouldn't have to worry too much about that no more.
We got Greg.
Charles Henderson.
Our black crappie.
Go ahead.
Our black crappie in 12 to 15 foot of water close to brush piles. Catching them on Bobby Garland, baby shad, albino, and monkey milk color. What did Charles Henderson say?
He said, do the crappie on the res ever move shallow in the fall like they do on the big four?
Not like that. Not my experience. I haven't seen them go that shallow on the Barnett myself.
It's got to be with clarity a little bit, right? Water clarity.
I don't know. I just think these lakes have different personalities,
Yeah, no,
and some
every
lakes,
lake, every lake has a different personality. It seems like
it's just a whole personality thing for me for the Reds and
that's a good way to
the
put
Big Four, and I don't ever see them going as shallow as some of these core lakes for sure. Now, I'm not saying they don't. I just never really find them there myself, and I've learned through the years I don't waste my time there. But
it. Yeah,
somebody might go in there this weekend and catch them in 2 foot of water.
yeah,
It just wouldn't be me. It's just not where I'm comfortable at fishing, and we're kind of think about where different people are really comfortable at fishing at. I'm a ledge fisherman. Normally, I'm gonna be near some kind of ledge. That's what kind of the Barnett taught me as far as crappie fishing in the early ages was fishing near ledges and you'll find fish. And I
yeah,
always tell people when they get in the boat, ledges and creeks and some kind of drop off are the highways for crappie, at least in the bodies of water that I'm used to fishing at. And you get to these oxbows, there's no really ledges to them, and they're a whole different animal. Like the core lakes, they've been silted in for so many years. Most of their ledges are very slight uh, contour changes. It's not a steep drop. It's not really what I would consider a ledge for the most part. So those fish have learned through the years they don't relate to them as much as they do compared to a lake like Ross Barnett. And I think of Darbone. That's another really ledge fishing lake in my mind. In my experience, when I have fished it, is you concentrate on some kind of ledges and you found fish. Okeechobee and Grenada. Um, those are really three that come into my mind that's in this area that I would consider a ledge lake. But you go to Lake Washington, Eagle Lake, Grenada, those fish will relate to flats a lot more, especially those oxbows. Chico, you kind of concentrate on depths of water and it might be the same depth for 3 miles.
yeah, true.
But if you can find a little contour, of course, that helps, but it's not really a ledge. So it can be really a big difference in those kind of things.
Exactly. Yeah, Travis Goodwin let me know. He was talking about at night seeing his trolling motor head. And yeah, you could put a glow stick on there and tape it and it'll turn and you'll help a lot. I'd say a headlamp too, but then bugs will get in your face pretty good wearing a headlight a lot. So I'd say that glow stick on top just taped on there is pretty nice if you're going to do it for a while into the dark. But it can be challenging. That'll test to see if your foot is in motion with your eyes on the trolling motor, because a lot of times, when I'm tournament fishing and stuff, I try not to look at the trolling motor head. You kind of try to get in sync and know where it's looking. So that's good practice for you.
I see Jordan Davis is actually a really cool comment, and I seen this happen yesterday, which I don't see it happen much. They said it caught a 196, and I can't see the other size, and a 130 on Chico that were sitting underneath a huge catfish or carp. The only way I knew they were there was because I saw a 130 swim off the bottom and set up under that huge fish. Yesterday, we actually did catch a crappie up underneath a gar as well. I seen the gar sitting on top of a stump, and I could see about 3 crappies sitting, kind of like they were sitting up underneath a limb almost. It was kind of strange.
Maybe they didn't know.
they didn't care, one of the two, because they set up right up underneath the gar sitting on a stump. And I looked at it at first, and I was like, I know that's got to be crappie. They just look perfectly, and I don't know. It was crappie sitting up underneath the gar on the reservoir, which is very unusual.
Yeah, I can't say I've even done that.
First time I've ever seen it.
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and Dustin, let's talk about the baits of the week. Your selection and my selection, and I've got a bunch of them out here, and it really goes back into this fall pattern like we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I also seen Chris Lindenberg asking about the new bait and how they were doing at Grand. So I'm going to show the new bait just to start off because I got a bunch of stuff setting out here. But this is the live roamer, the new bait I've been all obsessed about. This is what they're going to be chasing the next 4 months, pretty much 90% of their life. But these bad boys right now, the size and everything lines up. These are going to be killers from now until you're tired of using them. But they've been working super great, killing them at Grand. My favorite color all the way around, even clear and muddy water, is the pecan cream. Used it at Grenada, did well. Caught some giants at Grenada with it. And then this one in Kansas was really good. That's the double silver rainbow, and I love that bait. I'm so glad they poured it in this color. I'm really, really pumped that they use that. But one of the guys that I usually don't, I don't use near as much as I should. And I've got a few packs here. The number one color, which I also don't use a lot, we were using when I was shooting some stuff with Bobby Garland, was pink and pearl, I believe. And it was sharp pink. Yeah, pink pearl. But it was a super sharp color. But the Slab Hunter series, or Slab Slayer series, full size, just using a bigger bait, getting down there and aggressive with them. Still got the double silver rainbow in that too. But Cajun Cricket was really a killer. And the full-size Slab Slayers are something to go to in the fall. When they start really crunching and getting hungry, you slap 2 of these on a double jig head system and just go through there and start pounding them, and that's about as much fun as you can have. So there's 2 of my favorite ways right now when they're really starting to eat in these lakes, when they're out roaming, feeding on shad, those wolf packs you're talking about, or just sniping singles. That is a fun way to whack them on these bigger baits. And I love when we're getting into the bigger baits. And I know Brad's getting ready to show you another one of my favorite bigger baits.
This is a bait that you first look at and you think, man, this bait might be too big almost. And I think of the fall, and I think of fish really starting to get into a heavy feeding pattern. And, I'm not going to use this bait if a cold front moves in or anything like that. But if I have stable conditions for several days and the fish are aggressively feeding, I want to go upsize. And people always ask, what size baits do you use and profiles, and where do you start at? And I look at really same thing in the spring as I do in the fall. Stable weather, solid pattern, fish should be feeding, or they're feeding heavily, I'm going to go to a bigger bait. And why do you go to a bigger bait? Especially for me is you can move around more. The strike zone's bigger once you got a bigger bait compared to a small bait. Smaller baits, the strike zones is smaller. A bigger bait, the strike zone's bigger. Another good thing about a bigger bait to me is whenever you get a bite, 90% of them, they're going to just about jar the pole out of your hand.
They will.
They're going to try to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
A small bait, they're going to suck them in. And honestly, a lot of the bites that you will see more than you will feel them when it comes to small baits. But if you're having trouble seeing that or catching them with a small bait, and you got some stable weather conditions, definitely don't want to look over the Bobby Garland Slab Hunter. This is 2 1/4.
Look at her.
That's a new color right there. And then what is it called? Hot Tater. Dustin must have named this one. So as you can see it's a hot pink with a pearl belly. This is the good old hummingbird, which we talked about how good this color will be here on the Barnett. It's just a purple with glitter on it. And honestly, I think this color here.
I'll help them on this one. This Cajun Cricket, guys, is a cold-blooded killer. Another thing on these Slab Hunters, though, when you wear it grand to downsize, here, get your next color. I cut you plumb off, didn't I?
Well, the folks want to see this. The folks want to see this.
Give it to them.
That's the sandfly. And it's kind of like a gold color. You can kind of see it's a gold flake. Definitely 3 new colors in the Slab Hunters. Stable weather conditions, good bite, go to a bigger bait. Especially if you're having trouble with the little baits as far as seeing and feeling them, go to a bigger bait and they'll rock your pole.
Yes, absolutely. On these Slab Hunters, guys, they have these ribs on the belly, and it's almost like they're perfectly straight to cut with scissors to make it smaller, but it's still got that fatter profile. And at Grand, a lot of times I love to where that head just stops, that first rivet, it peels straight off. You just twist it and it's still just flat, and it swims straight when you peel that head off, and you still get that crazy vibration. That tail goes to thumping, and it's perfectly flat. So it still swims super straight, but you get a good thumper, just a little bit smaller profile when we ain't playing with those big old Barnett fish, and I get to play with these 10-inchers out here at Grand. But them little thumpers will kill them when you just twist that head perfectly clockwise. It should just rip it straight flat for you. Just a little tip on those Slab Hunters. Holden, don't be doing me like that, Holden. He said he's got some big deer on camera in Louisiana. Come on now, we're talking crappie, Holden. Don't be getting me off topic now.
you just kind of like a squirrel, and even that, bringing up the squirrel, I've seen these fish this past week act like squirrels, and we talked about it one time on a podcast. Todd Huckabee and me were talking about. I forgot who the guest was, but actually we were talking about how these crappie run on the backside of stumps and treetops whenever they get kind of spooked, like a squirrel will. And I've been seeing them do that the last week or so. And I tell the clients, hey, looks like we're going to do some squirrel hunting on these because they're hiding behind us on the other side.
They're running up and down the trees. I'll tell you what the squirrel of the lake is, though, is a white bass. On the pole timber, them white bass can circle a tree so fast and chase your bait and dart back so fast. That'd be a good squirrel fish.
No, I see Hummer saying something about launch at Grenada 3 a.m. last weekend, live scope and used on 132nd, saw them 3 to 4 feet until sunrise, and then they went to 6 foot after sunrise, using a 164th or on near submerged timber, 10 to 12 foot around noon. I bet he didn't have to wait in line at the boat ramp at 3 a.m.
No, I guarantee it. 3 a.m. That is wild.
Are those fish? I want to ask the Hummer that. Are those fish like they would be in the daytime as far as just cruising around, or are they really moving when it comes to around 3 a.m.? I can be honest with you, I haven't been out at 3 a.m.
I can't say I have either.
Not in a long time.
The way I always picture it is them things are zigzagging and running all over the lake.
Got Bobby asking about, you're talking about the 0 degree mountain. We've talked about that a lot. But Bobby's wanting to know more about what do you mean by a 0 degree mountain?
Yeah, Bobby, I was talking about, I've got my transducer set where it's straight with my arrow now. When you get deeper, you've got, is it an 8 degree offset, Brad? Yeah. An 8 degree offset. So your transducer, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but it's setting at an angle like this. And when your fish is setting here, you've got an angle when the water's deeper, you've got an angle where you have to cast further to the right or left, whichever way you got it, your angle facing, to get to the deeper fish. It's kind of like your angle's off on your transducer. So you have to compensate for that. You got to teach yourself how to do it. Unless you have a 0 degree offset. If you get a 0 degree offset for your transducer, you can just drop straight where that arrow's looking, and it don't matter how deep it is, you're going to be dead nut on it, and no matter how shallow or deep. It's a lot easier for you to hit target and just actually look at your arrow, reach out there and drop it straight down. So it's just easier all the way around on deeper fishing. When you get past 15 to 20 foot is when it really matters.
Even casting, I mean, before with the factory mount on there, you cast out and you think, all right, I've got it perfectly lined up.
Yeah.
And if you're not using a 0 offset, you actually got to make a cast at that angle to make it come in that line.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times if you don't have it, you'll cast and you think you have a line, and all of a sudden as it gets closer, it'll start appearing into the screen because it's following in that line.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely look at a 0 offset myself once you got a little better at it. Now, what I mean by that is you'll see your jigs more with the factory mount. But once you go to a 0 offset, you're a 0 offset, you will have to be straighter inside that cone to actually see your jigs.
You really be
starting out, use the factory, and as you get a little more comfortable with it and a little better at it, move to a 0 offset. I know I noticed this week that Sea Light actually carries a 0 offset. You can check with those guys. They have one that's, look pretty affordable to me. But you can actually purchase it from them, 0 offset for your live scope Garmin. I'm trying to catch up, man. John Lee saw the same thing at Lake Chico as far as sitting on the shady side of garbs and stuff.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if they get to hurting bad enough for cover and don't have a lot of it, might as well use the big fish for shade. So this lake in Kansas, you can spot lock in the middle of the lake and sit there for about 20 to 30 minutes and then turn your trolling motor around. And you'll have a 50 to 100 crappie under your boat, which is crazy.
Me too. Yeah, that's crazy that so many people see. You've never seen a fish go a crappie go underneath a gar or carp or anything yet?
I haven't yet. I have seen a gar or a big catfish. I've seen big catfish eat crappie that I'm fishing for. I mean,
Really?
I've been dropping on the Roman fish before, and I mean, a big 30+ pound blue has taken one out. So I've seen that before, and we've caught blue cats with this 10 to 12-inch crappie full still in their stomach. But I've never seen them hiding up under them or anything, which, I mean, I could definitely see it happening, just like the
Mm-hmm.
stuff you always catch them under and all that, docks and everything. If they're laying on a log, like you said, it would look just like a tree limb,
Oh yeah.
and they're going to get the shade off of it. And I'm sure being that murky and all that, they just say, oh, here's a good shade. Little do they know they're flirting with death.
And it may be just the time of year kind of thing. I don't know, but I know I seen it yesterday, and it was pretty crazy to think. And then like Chad Rogers, I remember him talking about it at Wolf Lake, and Wolf Lake has got alligator gar, true alligator gar in that
Oh,
lake.
man, the big
They got
flat
5 to 7 footers everywhere. So these are true
Ooh-wee.
alligator gar. And I remember
Really?
him saying that he caught them up underneath alligator gar, which that is one brave crappie to be underneath an alligator gar in my mind.
No doubt.
Probably needs to be caught because he ain't that smart.
He was going to get eat anyway. That's crazy. That's a bucket list catch, though. Just catch one of them 200-pounders. Big old alligator gar.
Jimmy Hayes asking, will I guide out of a customer's boat or does it have to be mine? I can guide either way, Jimmy. It really doesn't matter. We'll probably catch more fish in my boat just because it's the bike that I'm used to riding every day, so I'm a lot more comfortable on it. But
yeah,
we'll definitely do either way, whatever you would like to do.
It's always what I say. It matters on what your goals are. If you're wanting to catch fish, you definitely want to go in your boat.
All right, I got a Corey's asking, how fast do you troll whenever you're looking for crappie? Does it vary by seasons? Corey, for me, whenever I'm on troll, and we're talking about long line trolling at first, long line trolling, I'm always going to start at 1.2. It's just really where I know these baits are really at. There is occasions that I'll back off the speed, and how I determine the trolling speed when it comes to that is by turning. If I start a turn and I get bit on the right side and I'm turning left, I know those baits are going faster on that right side because I'm turning left. Now, if I get bit on the left side in that turn, I know those baits are going slower, so that tells me I need to slow down. So it's different things like that I look at whenever I'm trolling to actually determine speed. I always, like I said, want to go as fast as I can just to cover the most water as possible and come across more fish. So 1.2 as far as that, when it goes back to spider rigging, I'm going to say 0.5 to about 0.8 is my comfortable range when it comes to spider rigging. I like both right in that nest of speed, because if I'm going to go really faster than a mile an hour, I'm going to probably be trolling jigs. But if I've got to slow down slower than the bite long lines, I'm going to come back and spider rig in about 0.5 to 0.8. And that's probably using a half-ounce weights. Really what I like to use when it comes to weight sizes and spider rigging.
Michael says, new to live scope, how do you know fish is left or right? So that's actually a really good question that I struggle with clients all the time. With when they see my bait is right of the fish, they want to move it left instead of moving it closer to you. So if your bait is on the right side of the crappie, but they're both bright, that means you're in line of the cone. You just need to come closer to you. And then if your bait is left of the crappie and they're both bright, see, you have to get them both bright because that's when you know they're lined up in that cone that you're shooting at them. But when you're bright and it's on the left, that just means you need to go further out. If you read those numbers on the top of the screen, those numbers are how far you are away from the trolling motor. So if you look at 10 and you go down and you see your bait at 10 and the crappie's at 12, you go down and see the crappie's at 12, that just means you need to go 12 foot away from you instead of 10. Hopefully that helps a little bit. It's so hard to do without the screen setting here.
Yeah, and I see Casey, he had a pretty good explanation on there as well. For me, whenever I'm looking at it, and I've got my jig out. I see it on the screen, and I see the crappie. I want the same brightness of the jig and the crappie to match up. Now, if I pan to the right and that fish gets brighter and my jig gets dimmer, I know I'm on the left side of that fish.
Yeah.
So I need to steer back to the right. So you always kind of want to keep in mind, I want that same brightness, whatever the fish and the jig to match up. And if I pan to the right and one's getting darker and one's getting brighter, that kind of tells you they're on the opposite side of each other.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the other set of the left or right is that. I mean, there's two different left or rights. There's really necessarily there's no left or right when you're looking at your bait on the screen on the crappie, but there is left or right on getting your bait lined up on the crappie. That's so confusing
Right.
to sit there and say, but yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
you got to kind of feather it over. And when you see your bait is bright, then you find the crappie and you got to bring that bait to the crappie.
I got two questions. I won't get this real quick, but I see Bucks from YouTube. He's asking, when trolling, do you use bladed jig heads most of the time? If I'm long lining, I'm going to use bladed jig heads 95% of the time.
I like it.
I like a willow leaf.
98.
99.
There
98,
you
99,
go.
maybe even 100. But
there you go.
I'm going to use a bladed jig head if I'm long lining. Spider rigging, moving a slower speed, I probably won't use bladed jig heads. But long lining, I'm always going to have a bladed jig head out there.
Perfect.
He said, do you find, Colby's asking, do you find crappie that hide behind structure to have a breaking current and to ambush bait? Absolutely yes.
Yeah, I'd almost say yeah.
Both.
That's yeah.
Both is the correct answer when it comes to that, Colby. You know, I explained it yesterday to the clients I had on my boat. We were talking about fishing different areas of the lake and such. But my explanation when it comes to current is kind of like us. If we're out fishing, we're going to look for areas that we can get out of the wind. Wind is similar to current as far as crappie goes. And what I mean by that, crappie fishermen, we're looking for areas that we can get out of the wind. Now, current is the same thing when it comes to crappie. They're looking for areas that they can get out of current. So whenever I'm looking and I've got a situation that has a lot of current, it's kind of like us. If the lake's real windy, I'm going to look for an area that I can get out of the wind. And if the lake's has a lot of current in it, or river system, whatever, has a lot of current in it, they're going to look for areas that can get out of current. So if I kind of have the mindset, where can I get out of the wind? Crappie are looking for areas they can get out of the current. Current breaks, stumps, bridge pilings. And one thing I think they like the current break is, one is because they're lazy. It's kind of like us, and it's more comfortable to be out of that wind and out of that resistance in your life. So they're hiding behind there just because it's easier for them just to sit there, and also to ambush. I know I don't want to say too much, but I see a lot of times these crappie are sitting on stumps and stuff that I'll never see them actually sitting there until I bring a bait right over the top of them. And as soon as you bring a bait right over the top of them, and that comes back from pulling crankbaits and everything else, they'll come up and smack them. And I remember back, I guess it was the Red River a couple of years ago, those guys fishing down there, and they were saying that they never seen any of these fish sitting on the stumps. They would just come out of nowhere because they were sitting down in the knees and different things like that and come up and attacking them. But so there's a lot of times that you won't see them and they're waiting to ambush something. So yes to your question, more or less. On both.
Jeff Reeves asked the famous question: transducer on pole or trolling motor?
Absolutely easy for me.
Positive and negatives. That's easy for me as well. That's definitely going to be a trolling motor answer to me. But you got to go with what you're comfortable with. And I always say, don't just write us off because we're using it on the trolling motor. If you're fishing brush piles and you have a hard time with boat control, you don't fish very often, you can go up to the brush pile, spot lock on top of it, and use